Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kaiju Connections on the Entertainment Headquarters, my segment where we talk all things giant monster kaiju from the big screen in television. And as you can see, I'm joined here by a host of amazing content creators, friends, to talk about another classic kaiju film. And as you can see, we have Mr. DJ Anubis, Mr. Jedi Granville, Mr. Tony of the Dead, Anthony Jordan, Daniel Miller, Thrash Pondu Pond, and Mr. Sci-Fi Century. Yes. So
Gentlemen.
we are all a full house.
Yes.
And the film that we had to talk about is none other than the giant Behemoth.
That's what she said.
Exactly.
Not to you.
Oh,
That was okay. That was a blow.
No, might have to just
Yeah.
do a whoopsie. Oh wait, he comes back.
Oh wow,
Okay.
that was okay.
Oh
what the
no.
hell?
Daniel Miller's
He
on
got-
top of me.
You just remember, I'm on top of both of you, so don't worry about that.
Oh, I know.
Sexual talk.
And don't forget,
Kevin.
this is my show, so I'm the daddy here. So
Okay,
that's
there you
none
go.
of that.
Daddy.
That's ugh.
So
Oh my
a
god.
few months back, I think it might have been just before Christmas, around October, November time, I put out a poll, and it was to see what the next Kaiju Connections classic Kaiju review would be, and the giant Behemoth was the winner. So this is technically the audience's poll winner. So here we are. So I'll ask the same question I always ask. What was the first time you've ever seen the giant Behemoth? And what do you think about it? But before we talk about it, let's see who's joining us today. We have Mr. Jake Hall, who is another fellow, another kaiju enthusiast. We have Snark and Sass.
Hey.
Okay. Sure.
We have Sean Innes.
Sean, my brother Sean.
Your brother Sean, right? We'll also have
figuratively.
Kaiju Ricky.
Kaiju.
Nice avatar.
I think he's.
Great
Yeah.
avatar.
We'll have Emily Miller joining us.
Okay.
Howdy.
Yes. So we've got quite a host of amazing people watching us now. But like I say, let's get the show on the road. Let's get cracking, as people know I like to say. So, Mr. DJ Anubis, what's the first time you remember seeing the giant Behemoth?
Shockingly, when we went to G Fest and I bought it on Blu-ray, was the very first time I got a chance to actually see this film. So I always knew about it, but it was one of those ones I just had never caught on streaming or anywhere else, rent or whatever. But when I bought Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, I bought this one as well, and this was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed this a lot, and I'm glad I'm here to talk about it.
I'm glad you had to join me, because not many people know Mr. DJ Anubis is like a co-host. We do a lot of content together, and of course the rest of these guys are my Sci-Fi Society family. So we'll kick some ass on this channel. Yep. So, Mr. Jedi Granville, what is the first time you remember seeing the giant Behemoth?
I'm kind of like Anubis, I knew about the giant Behemoth for many years, but I didn't see it until actually recently during the Christmas holidays. And just like him, I was pretty impressed by this film. It's a very short film. True enough, this is one of those B sci-fi films back in the 50s, and it does what it's supposed to
It's
do, is
all
give you the
good.
information and go from
Thrash
there.
has got to stop her.
But other than that, no, the film is a pretty decent film. I mean, it's basically a British version of the Beast from 20,000 Phantoms.
But I do remember, if I'm rightly thinking, prior to this being basically the British version of the Beast of 20,000 Fathom, it started off as a different movie in the beginning, which we'll get into. Thrash, can you remember the first time you seen this movie?
When I was a kid growing up, Saturday afternoons, there was a local TV station which had a venue called Creature Double Feature. And every Saturday, they would have two vintage sci-fi horror movies, and usually on some kind of theme. So they paired this one with, I want to say, Reptilicus. I'm not 100%, but I believe it was Reptilicus. And I saw it when I was a kid. I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And you know what? I always loved it. I have a weakness for giant monster movies, always have. And again, as you were saying, this is one of the few, not only, but one of the few British installments into the subgenre. And again, it's a big monster eating a city. How could one not have fun with this?
Agreed. Anthony Jordan.
Well, I had went into this thinking I've never seen it before, but when I watched it earlier this week for the review, I remembered certain scenes. So, I've obviously seen this at some point in my childhood, only the details are very spotty to say the least, but I had a good time with it. It's similar to the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, but it's not one-to-one.
Yes, very true. Daniel Miller.
The first time I saw the giant behemoth was actually right after G-Fest in 2023. It was in the vendor's room, and I found this lying there on top of one of the shelves, and was like, "Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it, so I'll get it." And I watched it when I got home, and I was like, "Okay, it's a mixture of the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, the original Godzilla, but set in England. Great! I like more kaiju movies set in England, especially after seeing Gorgo and Congo, respectively."
Yes. Sci-fi.
Oh man, I did see it when I was a kid, but I think it was I think it was USA Network. They had something that Pondo was talking about. They had like a creature feature or creature crack or something like that. It was and it was I saw it. I didn't see all of it because it didn't really like it didn't really interest me at the point, and then it was still on, and then I saw that it was it has a dinosaur in it. It has a radioactive dinosaur. So okay, now yes, show me that. I'll see that, and that's when I saw. I didn't see all of it, but I saw towards the end. But it had been a long time since I saw it, and I was getting ready for it, and I was like, oh man, you know what? I thought I had it somewhere, but I thought I had bought it, but I didn't. So I was like, all right. So I looked up on Amazon and I bought it. It was $10. So I bought it on digital and I just watched the whole thing. And it is a short film, but I remembered some things, but I had seen it when I was a kid, probably like 10 or 11. But I enjoyed it now that I rewatched it. It was, definitely a 60s movie, sci-fi B movie, but it was great.
Mr. Tony of the Dead.
First time I watched it was actually for this episode. I never seen it before. I've heard of it, but never watched it. So I watched it for this for the first time.
What'd you think?
What was your initial opinions?
It seemed longer than an hour and 8 minutes.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
I mean, I can appreciate it for the time and everything, you know. I just wish there was more Behemoth
Yeah.
instead of the mystery, you know.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I'm more of the trashing the city, and I want to see the humans get crushed. So that's me.
Yeah.
Danny.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'll tell you, when I first met the giant behemoth, I remember when I was about 10 years old, and it was probably after the year I first was introduced to Godzilla. After I was introduced to Godzilla and I'd seen all them films on the television, I then saw Gappa, which was a VHS that my granddad just happened to own, and in that pile of the same VHSs was the giant behemoth. I used to have them because my granddad gave them to me, and we had them. You know, when we were decorating the house, there was a bag put in the attic, and there was a bit of a flood, so some of the things were damaged, including some of my VHSs. So unfortunately, I don't have the VHS of the giant behemoth or Gappa anymore, but I've got fond memories. And then soon as obviously basically you could search for things on the internet, I did manage to track it down and buy the American Blu-ray. So I do have that as well. But yes, the giant behemoth always had, you know, fond memories in my mind from my childhood. So let's get cracking and let's talk a little bit about the giant behemoth. So the giant behemoth, originally titled Behemoth the Sea Monster, is a 1959 British-American monster film directed by Eugene Laurie, with special effects by Willis H. O'Brien, Pete Peterson, Ivan Block, Jack Rabin, and Louis DeWitt. The film stars Gene Evans and Andre Morelli. The screenplay was written by blacklisted author Daniel Lewis James under the name of Daniel Hyatt, with director Laurie. So, where would you gentlemen like to begin? Thrash, would you like to start us off, since you've not been on the channel in a while?
I would love to. I have some notes.
Yes, I thought you might.
Mr. Nostalgia.
Well, this film is actually fascinating to me for a number of reasons, and one of them, and you are so right when you said it seemed longer than an hour and 8 minutes. The movie has this very strange episodic feel to it. And I think that's because as they were making it, they kind of changed their mind, the direction they wanted it to go. And yes, well, as we all know, Eugene Laurie also directed Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And this might come up in a debate later on, so I don't want to start it now, but I will say arguably a better movie of the two. Now, I love this movie, don't get me wrong, but if I had to put them together, I would have to go with Beast from 20K. More about that later. But initially, it wasn't going to be a kaiju movie. It was going to be more of this giant amorphous blob, sort of like something you'd see in the Quatermass movies, which is really funny because Andre Morel was Quatermass. Well, one of the many Quatermass. But in fact, that opening scene where the opening segment where the guy burns his hand on the sort of foam, there's going to be like this big foamy blob.
Yeah, so that was part of the original idea that was kept in this movie. Because the original idea,
And by the way, how stupid was that guy to see this unidentified pulsing mess and let me touch it?
Well, considering he's standing among a bed of tens of thousands of dead fish, the first thought is the unknown in this equation is probably highly toxic. So, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like the end sequence of Time Bandits. Mother, father, it's evil. Don't touch it.
Or right?
You have to make members of the cast more stupid than the audience, so the audience can go no. That was a very stupid thing to do. Also, one other thing, by the way, I do like that whole segment, by the way, because it's one of the few times in a non-Japanese kaiju movie where they actually reference the Lucky Dragon incident.
Yes.
They actually talk about that directly. And of course, the dead fish is a direct correlation between the two, between the actual fantasy element and a situation rooted in reality.
Yes. Yes. Couldn't agree more. Especially like when we did another, I can't remember what film that we reviewed together. I do remember.
We did Shogun the reboot.
Yes, and I think we talked about the Lucky 7 incident and how the fish never went to market because it had been affected by the radiation. And that actually added that element to the giant behemoth when the two people investigate and turn around and go, with the fish, we need to stop it from reaching the market. That was another element of this film that was based on real life events.
Oh,
definitely. Because in Japan, that's because we're going to be talking about Godzilla films later on. I don't want to get too far off topic.
No,
the sensationalism of the Lucky Dragon incident is what created the demand for a film like Godzilla. The fact that the Japanese they referred to the Lucky Dragon incident as the third bombing of Japan, because not only did the crew suffer major radiation sickness, but the fish that did get there, a lot of people got very, very ill again.
Yes.
And I don't mean to laugh. It's terrible. It's
no
tragic, horrified laughter, not sinister.
Yes. Yes. And so like you say, a mixture of fiction and reality. So this film starts off with a scientist, Stephen Kearns, delivering a speech at the beginning of the movie. He's a British scientific at the British Scientific Society, led by Professor James Bickford, about the dangers to marine life posed by nuclear testing. So straight away, that plays into, the events that are about to transpire. And, before Carnes can return to the United States, a real-life example of his concerns materialize when the fisherman of Lew Cornwall is affected by some unknown entity. So here is the fisherman, and the opening scenes are quite chilling.
Looks like Joe Biden.
Yeah.
My God, he does.
Dude, he looks
oh my God.
Oh no, he still looks too coherent.
Wow. Never heard that one.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was the perfect shot, and I'm like, well, that's Joe.
Oh, God,
since since DJ Anubis has the floor, why don't you talk? What did you think of the opening of this film?
I like it. The one thing that I really appreciate about the film is that it really touches on the radiation aspect of how it affects people. Like we see it occasionally in kaiju films, like with Godzilla and whatnot, but this film really spent a lot of time on how it actually affected people, like just its presence of how it affected either it totally scorch people into ash, or it mutates you in some way where you have like boils and shit on your face and whatnot. So I like that it's not just this creature stomping through a city; it actually leaves other types of destruction behind in its wake, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's the fact that you don't really see the behemoth, halfway through the film, but then you're seeing the dangers and everything it's leaving behind in its wake. Yeah, Jedi, your opinions of the opening of this movie?
As I mentioned before, I mean it's very dark in terms of it's ominous, because you see this fisherman and his daughter, they just got back from, fishing and everything, and You know, she's giving him a little, you know, banter, you know, teasing him about whatever, you know. And you know, it's just father's daughter play, you know, everything. But then, you know, he goes to, I guess one of the fish looks kind of damaged, you know, yeah. And when he is going to the water, all of a sudden he hears not he just he hears this pulsating sound, and then all of a sudden he gets the flash of light, and it's like, oh, okay, what's going on here? And in retrospect, this film is it's almost like I say, it's something that Thrash was saying, you know, it's kind of familiar with Godzilla because this thing has a certain power to it. You know, I mean, unlike the Beast, it's radiated, but it doesn't have anything like coherent that what Godzilla does, which is it breathes fire and everything. This thing gives off some kind of radiative or some kind of electric pulse that's damaging to anyone that comes near it. You know, so I mean, you don't know that right away, but the fact that it does that, it made me think of Godzilla. But you know, to be fair, you know, this film is really, you know, like I say, a one-off with the Beast because it came out before Godzilla did. And just the fact that you kind of say, okay, we got the Beast, but what can this creature here do? And when we see it, you know, do what it does, it's like, okay, this is a far more dangerous entity than we think it is, you know. So knowing that we see that opening transcend, you know, it's like, okay, what's going to happen now? Because when the daughter, you know, someone in, where's my father at, you know, and he doesn't come back, you know, she figures like, well, he went to the pub and everything, you know, and there was people, you know, she's concerned and everything. And one of the guys, you know, he said, well, he probably just, you know, off doing whatever, you know, but I love the moment here where that one particular actor, you know, he's very distraught. You know, he's like, well, if she's feeling this kind of way, let's go find him. Let's go search for him, you know. And, you know, you feel like, okay, we're going to go search for him. And that picture you just showed where they find him and he's all, you know, jacked up in the face. You know, he's pretty much, you know, messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives off the words where it says, I forget the exact words, but he does say Behemoth for sure, you know. So
Yeah,
he
and
saw this thing, you know.
yeah, and even I think it's a little bit later on, where I don't know if it's at his funeral where the priest is actually doing, you know, a reading from the Bible and he's talking about the Behemoth, which goes back to what Gary mentioned in the comments about the Behemoth, something from the Bible from the end of times. So there's a lot of biblical elements also added to this film right at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's there. I mean, it's right there. I mean, I think, and to me, I think that's a very good thing to do. Is, I mean, if you're not religious, you know, you're not going to get it. But taking elements from the Bible and really enforce it into these kind of films because it's saying that we're dealing with a very dangerous threat here, and it's a danger to mankind and anything else around us. You know, so it's. It lets you know it's like for what it is, you know, it delivers on that element, right?
Yeah. So as the plot progresses, obviously her father has now sadly passed away.
Since you mentioned Behemoth is in the Book of Job.
The Book of Job.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. So
they actually mentioned that in the eulogy. Now that you mention it, he does mention Job.
Yeah, yeah.
And how the father suffered like Job.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. There's that scene with the priest doing that reading at the funeral, and the mention the Behemoth and the talk about it, and it's like this. It just feels like very apocalyptic-y, you know, if that makes sense. The way that the sermon's going on, and it's like telling you that are things to come throughout the film, which I found very interesting. So, you know, after the death of the father, they also have thousands of fish are washed up on the shore, which obviously Corns and Big Fad, you know, they travel to to Cornwall, which is a beautiful place in the UK. If no one's ever been, it's just a really idyllic place. It really truly is. It's a beautiful place to
I
go.
can attest to that. Wonderful.
Yeah. It's lovely beaches, lovely areas, beautiful landmarks, everything. It's basically picturesque England. It's what you expect if you were to come to the UK and you wanted to see like oldie worldy England. That's where you would go.
Yeah.
So Carnes and Bickford travel to Cornwall to investigate the fisherman's death, and although his injuries seem to include radiation burns, they find no evidence on the beach. So straight away, there's a huge mystery around his death. So as the film progresses, they then realise that there's something there's something amiss here. And, we're also introduced to more characters and more actors throughout the course of the movie. She is a
Which
very
is interesting
beautiful...
because we don't see the daughter of that other gentleman that we saw earlier. Again, we just see him in the opening, text of the film. We don't see them again. So
that's an excellent point. We become very emotionally invested in the people of Cornwall. And by the yes, Leah Madison is gorgeous, by the way. that can't be understated.
Look, as a heterosexual man, I agree with you 100% there.
but it's funny because Bickford and the other, I can't remember his name, the Gene Evans character, Dr. something or other, they show up and there's this Carnes, thank you. There's this great interplay. You have that whole thing, the Ivory Tower eggheads versus the locals. So there's that element of distrust, and they overcome that, and the locals help them out. But then when Cons and Beckford go back to London, we just it's almost like it was like two separate movies, or it was like a Doctor Who series. And we've already closed that chapter. Now we're in London. There's a huge break. Like in the movie, the people that we see in the beginning are still most of the ones, at least the ones who haven't gotten killed. They're still with us at the end of them. In this, the first segment, we lose all those characters, Kagun. And it has a very, I don't want to say disjointed feel, but it's almost unsettling. It's like, whatever happened to the Cornwall people?
That's what I was thinking too, Thread. I was like, that's like, okay, we got these characters. Okay, it's like we're going to see them through the rest of the films. Like, okay, that's it. That's all we have of them, and then it's like
feel like this was scripts for different movies, Frankenstein together.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, this really started off as a different type of movie, and then I think because production or the producers of the movie studio had seen the success of The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, they wanted a film similar, and they wanted to have a creature in this rather than, like you say, the blob type element. So they kind of had to quickly rally around to find another way to make this a monster movie. So it feels like you've got two parts of two different films, like the beginning of a different movie that morphs into the movie that it became.
Yeah.
Which is basically what.
Can I just add that it's also Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, King Kong, and then Godzilla 54. So you can say that maybe they wanted to jump on the Kaiju bandwagon.
Definitely.
I think it's like anything, any movie studios. It's like when you get like a certain genre that becomes super popular, becomes the thing. Every studio has to create a film based on it. Like at the minute, the Marvel universe, you've got DC, Marvel, you've got every studio trying to create a universe. So, you've got Marvel's got the MCU, DC's got the DCU, Legendary Pictures, they now have the Monsterverse, its own monster universe. So it's something that has become the new normal to have a film company or production studio to create a movie that, if it does reasonably well, they're gonna, morph it into a shared universe. So obviously, back in the 90s.
Hold up. I mean, I was going to say too. Add on to that, Kevin. I mean, let's go back a little further. When movies like Jaws, Star Wars, hell, even I think when Star Trek was on anything, Star Wars and Jaws were their own entities, but when they became these blockbusters, it's like, oh man, we got to make our own kind of films like these, and I'm just like, why can't y'all just be like them? Even though Jaws is based on a book, Star Wars is based on just totally, fabricated out of nowhere. Why don't y'all just do that? Just fabricate something on your own time and see what happens with that. I mean, they did it with E.T. Hell, they did it with Ghostbusters. I mean, start something that you can, come out of the blue. But no, you got to ride that, train hard of something that's popular for the moment. And it's like, try something different, man. I mean, don't just ride on the coattails of all these other things that are popular for the moment.
Well,
why I mentioned bandwagon jumpers, man. They just wanted to jump on and make the money. Or I mean, I don't think make money, but we saw the giant behemoth, the stop motion animation, some of you could tell the puppet they would have to put in and out of the water. So I mean, it's not a bad film. It's just I would understand why they wanted to jump on it, but it makes sense even back then. Like they wanted to go where the money is, and they wanted to expand on that.
And sometimes this is weird. Sometimes it looks like it's a bandwagon jumper, but it's not. Like take for example, Battlestar Galactica, the TV series, the one that first aired in the 1970s. Actually, the treatment for that predated Star Wars. The network passed on it. They say this is Star Wars came out, was the biggest money-making movie in recorded history, and someone said, "Hey, wait a second, that robot movie we passed on. Do we still have it? Yes. Guess what? Battlestar Galactica this fall. It's like so. What happens is sometimes they pass on projects, but revisit the matter when the subgenre is hot." So they're still jumping on the bandwagon, but the ideas do predate it. Well, for crying out loud, the Flash Gordon feature film that was in production hell for years and probably would have stayed there were it not for the success of Star Wars.
Well, look at in Phantasm, the dwarves in the robes, everyone compares them to the Jawas from Star Wars, but that film was actually in production and those creatures were visualized as they were before Star Wars was released.
Yeah.
And just to add on real quick, remember I mentioned Star Trek. The Star Trek the motion picture that was in production way before Star Wars actually was released. Because they were going to do it as a television, show. But when that came popular with Star Wars, hey, we got Star Trek. Let's put it in production here, and that's what happened.
Yeah, because Star Trek was cancelled after, is it 2 seasons or 3 seasons?
3 seasons.
But so the original show was cancelled, and then Star Wars was released. The next thing you know, all the reruns of Star Trek started getting massive ratings on television, and that is probably, because of the people wanting to watch more sci-fi content thanks to Star Wars. Next thing you know, it's getting said, oh, let's make a movie. And that's what happened. They turned the motion picture into a reality thanks to the success of the big boom of sci-fi.
Yeah.
But,
and the funny thing is, he wanted to make Dune, but Herbert wouldn't give him the rights. So he said, fine, I'll rip off Flash Gordon instead.
To add on to what Walter said, to paraphrase the one line from Jurassic Park with the bandwagon people, it's like, you've read what others have done, then you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourself, so you don't have the respect for it.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well
mhm.
said.
Very true. So,
Good call.
Right?
and then of course we'll go back to where we were, like 1954. Giant Behemoth happened. Not Giant Behemoth.
Yeah.
The 20,000 Phantoms happened.
Mm.
Them went into production the same time as 1954's Godzilla, and they created the wacky, wonderful times of the 1950s over the top sci-fi era. And we had giant monster movies, we had crazy sci-fi films, they had Quantum-Mass, we had Forbidden Planet, you had them all.
Yeah, Chronos.
So
Like that.
yeah,
Hickman from Beneath the Sea.
yes. So Daniel Miller, I forgot where we were. Can you remember where I was up to with the plot? Do you want to continue on?
Wait,
I think we got up.
Wait,
We got up to
where
the bit
were
where
we?
they were going to investigate the death of the fisherman and the radiation.
Right. Okay. So they arrive at Cornwall in.
Yeah, that's where we got up to, Cornwall.
Right. They arrive at Cornwall, then they begin their investigation into the man's death, and of course, all the dead fish washed up on the sea. They also examine the man who got his arm burned after touching the pulsating fluff thing. Don't know why the hell you would touch something, even if you know it's going to be dangerous to you. What the hell is wrong with you? I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, squishy.
You right?
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but remember
What's gonna
later on,
happen?
they're in that room and you go, well, what is that? Radiation.
Yes.
They're just like talking. It's like, I know it's the times and everything, but when you think about it, it's like, like, oh, what is that? Like, look at it. It's same thing in the stuff. You
Yeah.
remember in the stuff, you like, oh, what's this stuff? Who the hell would taste something coming out of the ground?
Or-
Yeah.
Or what about that scene at the end of Son of the Blob after they freeze it and the idiot sheriff lets them put hot studio lights on it so they can film?
Yes. Yeah, he's giving his speech, the ice melts, and that sliver of blob comes under his screen. It's like, what?
Then he has the look on his face like he just spilled a glass of milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
he
wanted to say
does.
something real quick. It's something that the Tony brings up when they're examining the fish and everything. I don't give a damn what time or whatever it was. Why aren't you wearing gloves during this procedure? You are a fucking scientist. Use something to protect yourself. I'm watching this. I'm like, dude, you just touching this damn shit. You don't know what the hell it is. It's like you don't know what's contaminated. You touching it with your bare hands. I'm just like,
Wait a minute.
dude.
Calm down.
Wait a minute. Wait a
It wasn't
minute.
in the script.
You're using gloves. Wait, hold on. He's wearing gloves when he's walking around the coast with a Geiger counter, checking where the area where the fish have died. But then he has no gloves on when he's examining the fish in the science lab.
And let's keep on.
Okay.
Forget
Science.
that he didn't have a thyroid shield, which
No,
is
he
one of
didn't.
the parts of your body most susceptible to radiation poisoning. So, like,
That's
what
right.
good would the gloves have done if he wasn't shielding the thyroids to begin with?
Yeah. I mean, this was the 1950s, Health and safety was pretty much non-existent with regards to
Yeah,
radiation
that's
exposure.
People, before I get back to Daniel, people would at that time would know what jellyfish are, right? Jellyfish are highly toxic.
Yes.
They sting like a motherfucker, but still they're gonna squishy substance I don't know about. Let me touch it. Let me see what it feels like. It's not a jellyfish. It's a jellyfish. Oh, okay. Ooh, be careful
That
with
looks
jellyfish.
like warm
my
apple
squishy.
pie.
I will call it squishy.
Let's be
This
real.
is my
This
squishy.
stupidity, like Daniel pointed out, it does happen in real life. I worked with a guy weed eating. He runs his hand by the muffler exhaust for the weed eater, realizes it's hot, and goes like, "Oh!" I'm like, why did you touch it? And then 2 weeks later, he does the same thing with the spark plug, plug in when he accidentally gets shocked. He goes and touches that.
Is it that
Well,
moth to
it's
flame? Is that the moth to the flame situation? Is that what it is? The
I
moth is
guess.
attracted to the flame, and
Yeah.
okay.
well.
That's
I look at it as
Fables.
I look at it as the kid in the kettle syndrome. I call it. So you boil the kettle and you say to the kid, "Don't touch the kettle; it's hot." What's the first thing the kid does? They touch the kettle.
Yeah.
So I call it the kid to the kettle syndrome. So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel. I forgot. I didn't mean to say squishy, bro, and start a whole no rant. Sorry.
All right. Okay. So yeah, they get there. They examine the fish. They examine the guy's arm, and he's like, radiation sickness. I've seen these before in photographs from Hiroshima. Then, of course, they go into the lab. They examine the fish. Then they's like, oh wow, the fish are exposed to radiation. No shit. After the guy's arms got exposed to radiation, of course the fish are going to have the same thing. Well, I mean, where the hell did you get your degree from? The Science of Obviousness University?
no. He got his degree from 1950s filmmaking.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, after they explain, it's like, oh god, radiation, but there's been no nuclear tests or fallout in the area, so how is this possible? Then, of course, they decide to get on the boat and explore the coast where the fish were washed up. Because then they suspect that, okay, there's something here. What if it was a creature or an organism that was somehow irradiated by tests in the Pacific, came down through the English Channel, and is now residing off the coast of Cornwall? Which is a shame it's not happening in real life, because I would just go to Cornwall just to see a kaiju come out of the waters and attack Falmouth or Truro or something.
Definitely. Definitely.
I was astonished they didn't go for the obvious and say there was some freak radioactive waste spill in the Loch Ness by mistake and it irradiated the Loch Ness monster. It would have solved both problems. But maybe low-hanging fruit, I don't know. Although,
Yeah.
I gotta say, anyone else, any other Doctor Who fans in the audience? There were actually...
Well...
That's
Classic-
a surprise.
classic
If they
Who.
had a heart attack and die, that's a surprise to him. There were actually two Doctor Who themes that I could think of that were directly connected to Behemoth. One, of course, Terror of the Zygons, which, of course, their wonder weapon is the Loch Ness Monster, which looks staggeringly like the Behemoth, but also in Carnival of Monsters. There's when they're on the ocean liner, and there's that blurb of the dinosaur head coming through right through the portal. Both of them exactly carbon copies of old Nessie here. So whether it was implied it was a Loch Ness Monster or just happened to work out that way, I thought it definitely impacted later works referencing the Loch Ness Monster. Any takers?
No, because I was actually thinking that too.
yeah.
I mean, is it a reference to like Lost Ness, maybe the Nessie?
They never say it, but it's there. It's like you keep waiting for them to mention it, and they never do.
No.
Probably because initially it wasn't supposed to look like a Loch Ness Monster, so they didn't think of it until afterwards. Oh, you have both of them.
Stories.
Nice.
Mind you would have thought back in the 1950s, since Britain had already done that, and yes, maybe they didn't choose to do it because they already had the giant behemoth, but you would have thought in the 1950s it would have been the perfect opportunity to do a Loch Ness Monster movie.
Yeah.
But
why not?
obviously they chose not to, because probably the giant behemoth in Gorgo. But let's. So they've investigated. Yeah, we're gonna get cracking.
We're
So
cracking now.
back in
I also agree
Yeah.
with Emily. I like when you say film.
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 How,
Yes.
Dan, you say it.
Film.
Ooh. Two separate sides of England there.
Film.
Accents.
Yes, he is posh. I am not.
Yep. Yeah, I say
Is
Phil.
that another way of
He
saying straight?
says. I
So
You
say
have
Phil.
he
English
also
and you have
says
English.
Philum.
He thinks you're snobby. Is that
So,
what posh means?
so yes,
We're not
yes.
doing that.
So basically, Daniel is from. Where are you from again?
No, you don't have to tell
Yeah,
everybody where you're from. This is YouTube.
He's from the
in a
south.
yeah,
Okay.
from the south, a very awkward place between borders, and I mean sometimes it gets Twilight Zone awkward and weird.
Oh,
So
okay.
he is from this. So if
He's from South Central London.
I was about to say, it's like he's from the hood where Kevin's like from, yeah.
Yeah.
So who's a
Uranus.
fan here, or who is a fan here of the Game of Thrones?
I
Except
haven't
for the last
seen it
couple
all,
seasons.
but I have liked what I've seen.
So how I can describe it is, if this was Game of Thrones, Daniel would be from King's Landing, and I would be from Winterfell. I'm from the north. I
Okay.
come from a city that is one of the last major cities of England before you cross the border into Scotland. So a lot of people think I have a he's got it straight away. That is where I am from.
Yeah.
Indy, good guess, Indy, and welcome.
Kevin's got a little more sass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the northern soul, as people say.
Remember, he's the king of the north when it comes to all this.
That's right.
So obviously
Dan just
after
has
the
a giant
invest,
spider behind him.
What?
Oh, not that again.
Sorry, I don't mean to derail the conversation.
I am not looking over my shoulder again.
That's up to
Not
you.
this time.
It's like, hey, Deborah, how you doing?
so
I'm sorry.
Did you lose that spider again?
Yeah.
So basically, Dr. Corns begin to suspect that the behemoth that the fisherman describes seeing is some kind of large marine animal that has mutated as a result of being contaminated by nuclear testing. And I think this is where they go to that wacky paleontologist, Mr. Dr. Sampson. So
that part was cool because even though it's in the 60s, he's kind of like everybody like here who's a hardcore Godzilla fan. He's like, oh my god, Godzilla is real. Or it's like, like he's like that kid that was, always loving dinosaurs or always loving sauropods or something like that. He gets all giddy. He's an older man, but he's like, oh my god, this is the chance I've been waiting for. This is what I've been waiting for my whole life, and I didn't want to tell anybody when I was younger because they would think I'm freaking crazy. And like I like that part where he gets a little giddy and he gets very excited, even though he's an older guy. Like, some of us will get like we watch -1 or we hear -1, how good it was or whatever.
He fucking died in a helicopter.
Yeah.
And that's
Do you
the
notice
thing. They introduced this new character, Dr. Sampson. He's the hyper excited paleontologist, and you think he's going to become number 3 in the triumvirate. And then 30 seconds later, he dies in the helicopter crash.
Yeah.
And they just stopped talking about him altogether. They're even like, oh, darn, we lost the guy that we brought in. We should feel a little guilty that we brought him in. No, nothing. They don't even talk about it. When Dr. Elson in 20,000 Fathoms dies, it's just like, dun-dun. And the guy gives this great speech about he went because he was a professor and we have to learn and we have to know. And there's this great catharsis speech where about how, the attainment of knowledge sometimes takes a sacrifice. And it steals the movie. And when Dr. Sampson dies, it's like, oh, well, moving forward. And I'm like,
dear, how sad. Never mind.
Talk about not being emotionally invested with the dead. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
These people are touching blobs on the ocean. I don't think they care about anything.
No.
Right?
It's like if it's like any of these 1950s movies, there's always like a crazy scientist, or there's always like somebody who can explain things that regular people can't understand. So like, I like his speech when he was in the museum where they were talking about, and then they talk about this marine animal, and then he gets the picture of the footprint.
Yeah.
Now I say that, and it just reminds me of a number of Godzilla movies, but it also reminds me of lately the episode in Godzilla Legacy of Monsters, the television show, where the military have a giant footprint of Godzilla in like this bunker. So that's all I could see when I remember looking at this. And then
I just love how
giving
they showed in the picture. They were like, "Yeah, here's this picture. Take a look at it." He's like, "Oh yeah, it looks like some sort of lizard." And they're like, "Yeah, but you see the cop car like next to it." He's like, "Oh,
Yeah, it's like it's right
They
there.
always, I gotta adjust to look at this.
They just
two
kept
obvious
dropping
things in
bombs
this
on him.
picture.
Like, oh yeah, no, this creature's still alive. He's like, come again?
I feel like he brought a little like less stress to the movie, like not comedy relief, but like he's more of a goofy scientist but knows his shit. And then when the thing blew up, I honestly thought that like I blinked or fell past. I don't know what happened. I blacked out because I thought for sure he would be at the end of the movie, and then I saw the plane blow up, and I was like, or the helicopter. I was like, did he just die? I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, the one guy I liked in the movie, and he's blown up.
It does have and I think it's from this being multiple different scripts together, where the girl's father in the beginning, they make a big tragedy out of his death, and everyone else, guess he just died.
But the great thing I liked about him is the speech he gave where he talked about when they said, oh, well, the creature will be going back to the Thames River, which is natural water, because it will always go back to the place it was born to die. And he also gave off more information like, oh, this creature has like electric eel capabilities, which as soon as you hear that, you're like, fuck, this thing is going to be crazy when it's out of water. Which I loved all like the information he delivered, and it's like it added more depth to the eventual reveal of the giant behemoth itself.
It's possibly the most important scene in the movie because it feeds us all the exposition we need, and it does so without feeling like expositional dialogue because he's such a like quirky, approachable character. It really worked.
Yeah, because if he had some character to get that's like dry and it's nonsensical and everything, it's like, I mean, he's delivering. It's like, okay, he's so an eccentric kind of character. It really comes off like, oh wow, that's a punch in the face, but it's necessary,
Yeah.
And this is where basically things start to heat up, because Dr. Carnes and Bickford tried to tell the authorities that they need to shut the channel down, they need to shut the Thames River down, you need to stop doing the ferry service, because at the Thames River you do have a ferry service that takes people from one side to the other, and you have like loads of cargo ships come in and out of the riverside. So obviously due to that, and they're not willing to basically cooperate or help, this is your first interaction with the giant behemoth where you get to see it rise out of the water. And I'm not gonna lie, there was that one particular scene on the boat where there's a woman with glasses, and it's showing you differently. In it's just a reaction. It was like,
well, surprisingly, it wasn't her reaction that got me. It was that one woman that didn't have glasses on, and she's like breaking the fourth wall, like, oh,
And then you see them all falling into the river when the behemoth basically tilts the boat on its back, and everyone gets drowned.
Yep.
I just wonder, like, when they filmed that, like, I was watching it, and it's like you see all the people running in the streets. It's like at the time of filming, they're like, "Yeah, I just need you to run that way, like, just pretend there's like this big ass monster," because they have no idea.
You know,
So they just start taking off, and I was like, "Oh my god!" It's gonna be
what's
fun.
always got me with the crowd running from the monster scenes. Why do you always run in the direction it's going? Veer in off
Right.
to the left or right, or turn around and run back to where it's been. I think you'll be a lot safer than running in the direction it's going.
Or it's always coming down like the main street, and I'm like, dude, I'm cutting down alleys. Fuck you
Isn't
guys.
that
I'm
what
not
they-
running this
Right.
place.
Isn't that what they say with a bear? Like instead of run straight, you're like zigzag. It confuses
They
it. Or
claim
what
that with
animal is that?
alligators, but
Is it
that's a
alligators?
myth.
Well,
that's
didn't
nice.
no one
Oh,
say
sorry.
didn't no one say if a bear runs towards you, run straight for it? You run straight at it and it
Yeah,
scares it.
scream. It's like, okay, I'm not
Worth a
yeah,
shot.
I'll stand for it.
That's a, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna go out at least him with one less eye. You know,
It's funny you mentioned that because I've always wondered that, like in Godzilla movies and whatnot, they always stay basically in the same like lane. But they actually reference that in this. If you watch closely, there's a group of 5 or 6 people who duck into an alley. They don't go very far. They just sort of duck it, and they even you can see it in their faces. I think we might want to step back a little further. And
Yeah.
they go back just a few feet more and like, oh, we should be safe now. And as the monster goes by, it just sort of brushes the building, and the awning on the side of the building falls on them. And it's like, and that's why you don't try to sidetrack it, because you always run the risk of.
Well, I
being-
sidetrack, but I just won't stop. Like these guys are
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
get it. I'm
yeah.
like,
If you're gonna
even the ones
don't
that
don't stop and look how well your plan worked. Keep going, keep going.
It's like,
You idiot!
if anything, I'm gonna double back behind it. You know, like I'll come back around and do its damage up front. You know,
Well, isn't there a line in Gappa where a bunch of looters set themselves up at a restaurant, and the cop comes in and says, "Why aren't you going to the hills?" And they go, "It's heading towards the hills." What are we supposed to do when it gets to the hills? Run back? No, we're going to stay here, and it actually works, because the Gappa has left. So you know,
common sense.
Like for me, the most memorable part of the boat scene is when the damage is done and you see the bodies now starting to float. You had that one man in the water, and all his face was radiated, and he was lying dying. So it's like it's leaving a path of destruction in its wake.
Yeah.
Notice too, because this was Wilness O'Brien, when it first sticks its head out of the water, it's animated very similar to the scene with the Brontosaurus from the original King Kong when it
Yes.
first sticks its head out of the water.
Yeah, the thing is, I love this old school filmmaking, like the claymation stuff, and you know, a part of his wish is that they would still do like a movie like this using the old school ways. Like you do have Orman, you know, animation that does Wallace and Gromit. I would love for them to like do an adult-based movie and do something like this with the claymation. I think the closest thing we got to was the film we all watched together. Like we did a like kind of a mini like film marathon when we were all talking one night, and we watched a film called Howl Beyond the Fog, which that's probably the most modern version of a kaiju, like claymation type, you know, Harryhausen style movie, which it had puppets, and you got to see this creature which looks very much similar to the Behemoth, like a giant version of this creature, but it's got leaves and twigs growing out of its back because it's a very ancient creature that lives in the lake. So that for me is the closest we'll get to ever having a film like this again.
Well,
which
can
is
I add
in
one?
many ways?
Can I add one thing about this scene too with the fairy? It's kind of similar to something that happens in Stephen King's version of War of the Worlds, where they're on the ferries and the tripods actually attacks the ferry, and it does something similar to what they do in the Behemoth. You know, they push it over the side and knock it on its, you know, pretty much, you know, capsize it and everything. And I'm just like, I wonder, could they've got inspiration from the giant Behemoth for that moment, you know, because it does seem kind of reminiscing similar to that, because you got to remember, a lot of artists, they won't admit this. I feel that they go back to the old ways of filmmaking and say that, oh, we got this from this idea or borrow this homage for this film, and it just was just a little bit bigger. But I just wanted to throw that in there because it does seem like that for that film, as opposed to they, did it because like I say, it looks so similar when the Behemoth capsizes the ferry, and that's a good shot too, with it capsizing and everything. It is so brilliantly done, and I'm just thinking like, oh, someone might have just said, well, let's take a little bit from that and put it in this film and just see how it works.
Brother Walter, you called it Stephen King's version of War of the Worlds.
Did I say? Oh God!
Did he?
Yes, he did.
Did I say Stephen?
Yes, oh my Spielberg. Yeah.
Well, that's one film I would love to go see.
I wish Stephen King would make a version of War of the World.
That'd be one crazy fucked up movie.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it would.
So for me, those initial scenes where you finally get to see, you have the ferry attack, they then come up with this plan with, is it uranium? What was the name of this?
Radium.
Radium. Where they're gonna use the radium to then quicken up the Behemoth, its death process, because they know it's dying, they know it's going there to die, they know that they want it to die, it's dying slow. So they want to try to speed up its death by inserting it with all of this radium, and they're preparing these submarines to go ahead and do this. But in the meantime, the Behemoth rises from the River Thames one more time and goes on a rampage around London. And I really enjoy these scenes. I love how they're done. I just think it's brilliantly shot. I love the camera angles. I love how they've done the actual Behemoth and, its movement. I loved everything about these scenes.
Yeah,
and I love...
Yeah, sorry.
No.
No, I also like...
Oh dear God, it's another monster.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, I can't go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I was gonna say I still have to go to work.
Yeah. If that was like Amazon, they'd be like, you're still coming into work tomorrow, right?
Right.
I think these particular. I think this particular shot my favorite, where you're having an up looking at the Behemoth face in the point of view of it, looking down, walking through, just looking down at the people, crushing everything. I just think it was excellently well shot and made for its time.
Yeah. I also
the
like
only thing I
don't
like about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry. I also liked how they managed to get the stop motion of not just the animal, but also the destruction it causes. Like you look at the scene where it takes apart the cranes that are at the dock on the River Thames, and then it just starts. Then you see it crash into a building. You see all those fragments of the building just crush. And what I have to think is rather smooth looking stop motion, especially for this point in time.
Yeah, 100% agree. Do you have any more facts, Thrash? Any more notes? Because you're quite good at this.
Well, one thing that I liked is originally they were going to use demolition devices to blow the thing up, and they go, no, that'll spread pieces everywhere, and that'll somehow be worse. And again, we see a direct connection to Reptilicus, because that's the first thing they want to do in Reptilicus is to blow it up. What do you do with all the pieces? We find the pieces and destroy them. Hey, moron, this thing is like a starfish. You blow it to pieces, and all the pieces grow. In fact, that actually is the surprise twist to Reptilicus, is that they actually missed one, and well, there was never a sequel, but there certainly could have been. And again, I thought the movie made a great companion to Reptilicus. Also, another thing, by the way, I thought it was very synchronistic that they decided to use London, because bear in mind, this is only about 15 years after the Blitz, And
Yes.
the idea of London being trashed again, I'm sure, would have been very powerful to the film audiences at the time, much like it was with Godzilla in Japan. I mean, one cannot help but see the connection.
If they ever did like a modern reboot of this, like a British or Americanized version of this, they could go with your idea, Thrash, keep it within the period piece of after the Blitz, and have like an Americanized version of Godzilla -1, where the giant behemoth basically comes into London and thrashes it after it's already been through such a terrible ordeal.
Yeah.
I think that could definitely work as a reboot or a remake idea.
I was gonna ask.
But
I was gonna ask. I was gonna say, Kevin, that it was I thought since I had not seen it in a while, I thought he was actually gonna go to the Parliament. Is it the building, the
the
giant
Houses
tower?
of Parliament, in the Big Ben.
Yeah, the Big Ben,
Yeah.
the building. I thought he was actually gonna knock it down. I thought they would have probably made a miniature.
Yeah,
He would
well,
have
I
knocked
think
it
what
down,
they
but
did is, I think what they did is they gave the giant behemoth the Tower Bridge, which goes over the Thames, and they left the Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament for Gorgo.
And Congo.
I think so. They said, "All right, you can have the Tower of London, the Tower Bridge, and we'll give Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament to Gorgo."
And one thing I just have to throw out there, since you brought up Gorgo, which of course, as we all know, was the British answer to Gappa, that was also directed by Eugene Laurie. So he directed 3 kaiju films, and apparently he despised making dinosaur movies and actually gave up directing just so they wouldn't try to make him do another dinosaur piece again, and spent the rest of his career as an art director and
I want
production
that
designer.
movie. Let's get
Yeah,
Behemoth and Gorgo. Come on.
Yeah.
Works for me. Works for me.
Wait, why not a
Definitely.
3-way match of Gorgo, Behemoth, and Conga?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were
Conga
going to say
sucks.
Varan because you've been picking the bone for Varan to come back.
Look,
Ron
I'm
the
sure
Invincible.
Varan, he's not British. So, I mean, we only have
That's what
3
I was gonna
British
say.
kaiju that I can name, so get Conga in there.
Then let's also do King Kong.
I was
versus-
very surprised. I was very surprised that many years ago, when there was a British comic book company and they created the Conga comic book series, and they created the Gorgo comic book series. I'm really surprised they didn't do a giant behemoth comic. That
I
really
know.
surprised me that they did an actual. I don't know if it was them. I think it was. They did a Reptilicus comic as well, that added Reptilicus to one of the stories, and I think it's because they couldn't get the rights to use the giant behemoth, so they ended up going out there and finding the rights and were able to get the rights to Reptilicus.
Yeah.
So you've got Reptilicus comics, Gorgo comics, and Conga comics, but not a giant behemoth, which always I found bizarre. That
The funniest,
especially I'm just going to say, I found it bizarre, especially that it was a British comic company that made them comics and they didn't do a behemoth one.
The funniest thing I ever heard about Conga, it was on Dark Corner's reviews. Robin said it. He goes, "That's the funny thing about chimpanzees. When they get bigger, they turn into gorillas." And I remember thinking that as a kid, because Conga isn't a gorilla initially. He's this cute little chimpanzee. But when he gets the growth serum, all of a sudden he becomes a giant gorilla. And I'm like, why? Those are 2 different species. But I thought it was a very piquant observation.
Yeah,
But
man.
another
Like,
great
Thrash Pondo, you really like freaking dig deep into the source material, man. Like that.
He
That's
knows
like
his shit, man.
that's-
He knows his
yeah,
shit.
that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because
Call it a
yeah.
weakness. what I do.
I've never
this
caught his
is
show
why
on
he was
Sunday,
invited.
man. They talk a lot of cool shit on Sundays on his show, dude. You have to
Yeah.
check it out.
Sunday nights at 7:30. You guys are all welcome. Please come by. We do a general Q&A. All subjects welcome. Vintage sci-fi preferred.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I always try to make the on Sundays if I'm not working the next day, because obviously time differences. It's like 1 a.m.
Tough for
But
you, I know.
it shows you I'm dedicated to your channel. I'm dedicated to what you do because you do some cool stuff. The same with the rest of these guys. If you don't know who these are, they all have their own channels, which I'll put the links in the description below. You can check out what they do, and I hope you enjoy and just subscribe to their channels. But we're on the final haul of this movie. So, Daniel Miller, do you want to finish this movie for us? So the bit where the giant behemoth is went through and he's wrecked he's wrecked London, and they're preparing the submarine.
Yep. And as he's wrecking London, we actually see him exposing unfortunate civilians to his radiation, which is done with this negative filter over a spiral optical effect, which I thought was interesting the first time I saw it. Anyway, after that, they plan to use the radium to kill the behemoth. Let's see.
Is that just like showing like that he is radioactive, or is he actually like shooting something out?
I think it's just
about that.
I think it's implied he could target people, like with the father and son. It didn't happen till after the father shot at him.
Like a pulse? It looks like some kind of pulse.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking at. Yeah, it looks like a pulse.
The idea was because he has like abilities like electric eel, that it was a pulse of sorts, and then when he did that, it would like pulsate radiation, and so. But the only thing I can never really figure out is like how, like, did he have control or did he not? Because when he was being attacked by soldiers, he like went overkill on them. They like turned to ash, like right there. Whereas other cases, it was more just like, oh, the guy with the hand on his face, like, God damn, I gotta go fucking work tomorrow. Fuck, you know, like one of those things. So like, I can never tell like if it was able to control its pulse or if it was just variance, whatever.
Good question.
Doing.
Very good question.
Yeah,
it will be good to know if he was deliberately targeting certain people with the radiation, because then that would give more level to the behemoth's intelligence. You know, if it has that ability to go, right, you are attacking me, so I'm going to hit you with this.
Well, remember earlier in the film, he attacks this farm, and this one guy, he has a shotgun, and his son follows suit with him, and he affects the guy with the gun, the father, but the son, he pretty much turns into ash. So I was just like, it's like, okay, you got two people, but you're gonna rate one another, but you're gonna turn the other one into pretty much nothing. So yeah, make that make sense, you know.
Yeah.
Did the
son had a lower tolerance.
Shot at him, right? Yeah, lower tolerance. He was younger.
Yeah,
he didn't have as much bone density.
Yeah, I didn't care. I didn't care much about the hunter and about the farmer and his sons. Like, why the hell they have to kill the dog? They let the dog live. But I was like, I'm just. Go ahead.
Maybe he didn't drink enough milk.
No, like I say, we can kill as many humans as we want in these pictures. Like if you mess with the dog, any kind of pet, it's like, okay, it's time for war. All right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, but you know what? But I did want to say before you continue, Daniel, that like when Anubis was saying, like when they would get like turned into ash or something, they looked that was pretty good effects for the time.
Oh yeah.
They would just look, they just looked like they were like turn to ash, but still ripped apart, but still kept together. If it makes sense.
It's kind of like what you would see, like when a vampire like hits sun. It's like remains and like ash. It's just sitting there.
Okay, I looked it up. Since it was compared to an electric eel, I looked it up, and electric eels can control strength and type of electricity they produce.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it
We all
probably when
learned
it's
something.
using the so it's probably when it's using the electric eel effect. It's
So it
you know,
probably had
electricity.
stronger when it was being attacked. It was probably doing something more.
Yeah, which is projecting the radiation unbeknownst to the behemoth outward even stronger towards the people that it's aimed at.
Yeah.
Cool.
So obviously the rampage is after the rampage, the behemoth smashes through London Bridge, which is an iconic landmark for us here in the good old UK. Once that happened and things settled down, that's when Carnes and Pickford set their plans into action. An X-class submarine with Carnes on board carries a torpedo filled with radium into the Thames in pursuit of the monster. But if you remember initially, the first initial attack doesn't go as planned because the behemoth actually attacks the front of the sub.
Yeah.
Which I actually thought Carnes was going to be killed. And then it would leave just one cast member left, like the last main star, which would be Pickford. So I really enjoyed the fact kind of the teased his demise and it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, of course, we'll end the film with Kane, he gets convinced to give it another go. He goes into the sub for a second time and he launches and fires the torpedo successfully into the behemoth's mouth, and the behemoth roars in pain. And the helicopters around confirm that there is the demise of the behemoth. And just when everybody's celebrating and everyone's having a good time, Carnes and Bickford climb into a car to leave the area. They hear on the radio of dead fish washing up on the eastern shores of the United States, leaving it open.
And years
Leaving
later,
it open
Rim.
for a sequel.
Yep.
Which still
That never happened. That never happened.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming it didn't happen because the behemoth wasn't financially successful in the theaters. I'm not sure if it was classed as a success or not. It's obviously through time become a cult classic. It's a classic kaiju movie, but I always assume as soon as people connect the dots and go, "Oh, what is the British kaiju movie?" Everyone goes to Gorgo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? It's your problem now, motherfuckers.
So
Gorgo may be the most
that's one.
recognizable, but this was the first British kaiju.
Yes, it was. So, in all, gentlemen, let's talk about what overall thoughts on the movie itself, starting with Mr. DJ Anubis.
Totally enjoyed it. I think it's really great, especially for its time. I always have a love for a lot of these older monster movies, and this one's right up there with Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and stuff like Gorgo and all that. So definitely, there's some problems with the story in terms of just like editing and continuing, but with the budget that they had, they did the best they could. Personally, I would like to see someone reimagine this and bring it more modern. Unfortunately, we don't have like a lot of diehard directors that will do stuff like this, which is unfortunate. But this is something that I would love to see be remade. And same with Beast. I'd like to see these movies given a little bit of chance to like breathe some fresh air because it's been so long.
I personally, I would love to see like a trilogy. So the first film in the trilogy would be a remake or some sort of modernization of Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Then the second in the trilogy would be a remake or a reimagining of Behemoth. Then the third movie would be the Behemoth versus the Beast to end it in a trilogy. Two separate creatures, maybe from the same family, but who are mortal enemies that in the third movie come and collide. I just think it would be a great trilogy, and it would link America and Britain and have two films from both across parts of the world combined.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Mr. Jedi Granville, overall thoughts of the Behemoth?
I got to say, I mean, it's funny that I never saw this film until recently, but it is one of those films that I'm realizing now I'm harking more back to the times when films like this were simpler, but they kicked ass in terms of they give you what you need, because you want, as Tony the Dead said, you want monsters to appear and stomp on everything, causing a lot of property damage. And if there's collateral damage with humans, like, that's okay. That's part of the job. They're supposed to kill the humans and wreak havoc. But no, the film is really a good example of just having a good time with your popcorn or whatever. And it would be nice if they would remake something like this, something that was not high budgeted. It was very low budgeted, and take it for what it is, and give it an update. You never know. I mean, hopefully if they were to do it, they don't do cheap CG. They will actually give it a full front of a little bit of CG, but a little bit of practical in there.
Well, I mean, if you take a guy like Takatashi from -1, I mean, it only cost him like 15 to 20K to make -1. So like, you don't have to put a lot of money into it, and it still looks great. So as long as your CGI looks good, you're golden. I mean, it'd be more fun to have like claymation for sure, like what Kevin talked about with How from the Fog, is like that was really well done for a claymation type of monster film. But I know US will probably be like, yeah, we gotta spend like 200 million on this. Like, no, you don't. You don't have to do that.
You don't.
Exactly. And one more thing before I go, before I finish this off, is the one scene where the Behemoth's at the near the Parliament and everything. Did that shot kind of remind you, if anyone's seen Reign of Fire, where all the dragons are sprouted out, and the father, what I was gonna say, the head dragon is over everything, eating different dragons. It just reminded me of that for some reason.
I can see that. Yeah, I never thought of it until just now, but yeah.
Yeah, you're
Rash,
correct.
your
Amy.
overall thoughts?
You're right.
Okay.
Like I say, I have a weakness for kaiju films. I always love this one. Again, as we discussed, it's a little disjointed. The stop motion effects. A lot of people criticize the stop motion effects, and it wasn't up to Willis O'Brien's standard. I think they're great, and even when they're not stop motion, like the head bobbing out of the water and stuff, I have fun with this movie, and I think it's great. One thing I always did think, though, is that little surprise twist ending always felt like tacked on to me. Like in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the ending is "You're next, you're next," and then they cut to the scene where he's in the police station and they rally the support, and the idea is that there's going to be a happy ending. This is the reverse of that. We've won, yay, we've won. And then they get into the car, just happen to turn on the radio and get a blurb about, oh yeah, and from Maine to Florida, dead fish are washing up. Dun, dun, dun. It really felt like they tacked that on at the end. Like that wasn't going to be how it ended. But they go, let's leave it open for a sequel, which, as we all said, never happened. But I'll give this movie a solid B+.
Yeah, that's a solid rating. Mr. Anthony Jordan.
I love this film. It's got its flaws, but it's still enjoyable. And as a comment mentioned, that you got to cut Willis O'Brien some slack. He was dealing with arthritis when making this. And it's also Willis O'Brien. He gave us King Kong. Like, just because this film may not have been up to his usual standard, it's still very well done. I do agree that little bit at the end did feel tacked on, but I thought the Behemoth looked great. the animation looked great, and in some parts, I think it even upstages Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Like there's that scene in that where the Beast steps on the car, then pulls it up, and all of a sudden that solid metal is very pliable. But I have to agree with Thrash and give it a B plus. It's still a very enjoyable movie of the time period, and you're also not even losing an hour and a half if you watch it. So if you don't like it, you don't have much time lost.
Very true. Mr. Daniel Miller.
Now, looking back at it recently, this movie, I'm a bit mixed on it, but I don't mind it. It's actually pretty enjoyable. It has a really good opening. Is also quite a suspenseful opening with the build up to the father having the radiation all over his face. Then it has this sense of dread the moment you see the fish washed up on shore. The creature design, I was like, okay, so they basically went with the Retrosaurus look, but changed it a little bit enough to avoid plagiarism. All right, fair enough. Well, I was really pleased to see London being the center of a kaiju attack for once. After seeing Gorgo and Conga, it's refreshing to see it in the black and white movie as opposed to seeing it in a color film. Now, what I do have this film as gripes with is what Pons said about the ending being tacked on. I think the film could have benefited without there being a twist ending like that, just put onto the end, just like, oh yeah, fish are washing up dead on the east coast of the United States. Or the plot, we're leaving this open for sequel bait. No, that's the low point in the film for me. The stop motion wise, although O'Brien did have arthritis, it's actually really good on this in this movie. So yeah, that's also a really positive one for that. There are some really good elements I did like, especially with the whole tying into the radiation aspect of it, and actually how they mentioned the victims of Hiroshima and sort of made parallels to the Lucky Dragon incident, which is something I would have expected more from.
I agree.
Of the film, but no, I'm glad that it happened in a British kaiju film.
Here's a question for anybody, maybe Thrash more. How often did they even make sequels to monster movies like that? Like I'm trying to think. I can't really think of any outside of Kong and Godzilla films. Like, you have they've been mentioning giant Gila monster, tarantula. Like they never really made a lot of sequels to a lot of these films, even though they might leave them open ended. But I can't really think of anything where it became like a big thing back then.
Well, to my knowledge, this is just my opinion. To my knowledge, a lot of these giant monster movies that didn't leave the creature alive, and they always kind of killed the creature off. For me, that's what I do find unique about the giant behemoth. It has an open ending where you could go straight into the sequel. We did the tarantula, if you remember. The tarantula gets killed. Giant 20,000 Fathoms, the beast of 20,000. The monster gets killed. But unless they mention it or leave it leave you a clue.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's weird that they did that because
they generally
they just weren't really doing them, and so I just wonder how they thought to themselves, okay, well, let's do this. Maybe they just did it for like a fear factor, like they kind of add more mystery to it all. But I just never really saw many sequels.
It's not like they didn't do sequels to movies either. I mean, because you got 3 creature movies, but I guess. I can't think of any, like a lot of sequels either. I'm trying to think. Besides,
The Amazing Colossal Man had a sequel. There were occasions, but by and large, the kaiju, the giant monsters, tended to be standalones.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I can't think of any, unless they just count another.
Or like a lot of the kaiju movies. Yeah. a lot of the giant kaiju movies that were like a one-off, or the
What's up, Tracy?
like, or what they did is that's probably one of the uniqueness about the giant behemoth. They let you know that there potentially could be another creature out there. The majority of the other movies, they didn't do that, or they always would see, like, for example, in them you had, the bomb that went off. You had that hive of eggs. Sorry, hive of ants. They were the only ones that were radiated that grew to that level. So once you wiped them all out and killed the new queen, you wouldn't get any more unless there was another queen that flew off, but they didn't ever hint at that. So a lot of these movies like Tarantula, that was the part of a giant experiment. So there was only ever one giant tarantula, like Anubis said, unless it laid eggs. So a lot of these films, there was always an explanation of how the creature was formed and a way to kill it.
That's a really great point,
Godzilla.
Andy, because I'm a big Ray Harryhausen fan, and it took hours to do that stuff in stop motion. So
Or-
I can see
Yeah.
that being a big issue.
Or another ending, The Thing from Another World, Watch the Skies. It wasn't necessarily setting up a sequel, but it was like there still could be a threat out there.
That's right.
Well, yeah, considering why are we watching for a current alien when the whole premise of the movie is it was an alien from forever ago?
No, the Thing from Another World, it was actually a freshly crashed alien.
Yeah.
I thought it was still from like 1,000 years ago.
No, because they actually, in the setup in the beginning, they showed where the radar track.
Yeah.
Apologies.
When they showed it, it was melted ice.
Yeah, that's the Carpenter movie where it was 1,000 years ago.
I'm confusing that. I haven't seen The Thing from Another World in years. I'm confusing the two plot points. Apologies.
That movie is a great opening soundtrack from Dmitry Tiomkin, The Thing from Another World. Great opening soundtrack in that movie. But yeah, Giant Behemoth, my rating, I'll have to give it a 5.5. No, just a 5 out of 10. It gets a 5 for some interesting ideas, but it could have done a lot more with them, and it is kind of flawed, but nonetheless, you get what you pay for. A giant monster running a riot through Cornwall to London. End of story.
Yeah. Sci-fi.
Well, a lot of you guys, Nubis, Jedi, Rash, Anthony, Professor, like you guys have already pointed out a lot of a lot of what I was gonna say. It's definitely a cult classic. I could put it up there with, because I mean I love movies like that too. So I won't give it too much like praise like this because I just love movies like that. But it does have its flaws. You can tell they did their best. The guy, I guess the guy who did the stop motion, was that Will? What was it? Will's
O'Brien.
Okay, yeah. No, it did for the time, for the budget. It was all good. Like it was pretty damn good. And the story started off eerie, ominous, and then some of the acting was good, and some was it felt kind of still rushed. Still felt kind of rushed. And even especially the ending. The ending was just wow, that was a very fast ending for me, but a lot of you guys had a lot of good points. I would pretty much give it like a B. I'll probably give it a B. It's definitely it's definitely a classic you can go back to, especially if you love that kind of film, that kind of cinema. And yeah, I mean, I bought it. Like I said, I bought it for $10. So I mean, now it's in my library, digital library. But I give it some love, and it does have its cult following. And, it deserves what praise it gets from everybody who loves that kind of genre, loves those type of cinema. So.
Mr. Tony of the Dead.
Well, like Sci-Fi said, it does have negatives and positives. This my first time watching it. I thought I had this actually, and I don't. But it's I like I said, I wish that we could have seen the Behemoth more, like even like hints of it, like I don't know, in the background, like you see it pop out of the water or something, like besides all that stuff. But other than that, the part where he comes out and starts trashing everything is like the best things in the movie. Obviously, I know you need to set up a plot and like a story and that, but there's just too much of planning until he came up that, like, for me, and it's only an hour and a little over an hour of a movie. So, but I of course everybody wants more of the creature, but when you first see the not stop motion, like it's like that picture you showed where he's like this coming out of the water, I thought at first like oh, that looks terrible, and again it's the times, it looks weird. But then when you get to the stop motion, I do like the stop motion a lot. And the one part of the stop motion that I'm surprised nobody mentioned is like when he's swimming underwater. Am I mixing a movie up, or did he swim under the water with the submarine?
Swims underwater.
No, they showed
Okay.
it. They showed it.
Like an alligator.
I've watched a couple movies since this, and I'm trying. I told this Anubis earlier. I was like, I kind of combine them sometimes in my head. But yeah, when he's swimming, and I just thought that looks just like how Godzilla, when he jumps off the cliff and like into the water, and they do that swim thing, like it would look just like that, and the stop motion looked really good. I like an open ending. I like to know that that's not just it, but yet if it just died, I'd be fine with it. But yeah, talking about it makes me like it more. I'll be honest, because I told Anubis, like, don't forget we got to review the giant pile of shit, right? And I go Behemoth, and I'm also surprised it's like a whole bunch of mixed reviews here. It's I kind of thought you would be all kind of more on the same wavelength, but that's great. Yeah, I like it more not talking about it. I could appreciate it more, but as a movie, I would probably say on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it like a 6. And I really don't know I would own this, to be honest, but I would like to see an updated version. Maybe somebody could take all these 50s kaiju movies and make their own universe, like Kevin said, with America and England, and and then maybe someday have a crossover with the Godzilla universe. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds good to
one
me.
thing I wanted to say too that I think was a big screw up is that picture with the footprint in the car. And then when the Behemoth is walking through the city, there's no way his feet are that big. Yeah. So I wish they would have made it more to scale, like where Gorgo is trashing that in the beginning of your intro.
Hey, Samurai!
Like
all right, Samurai, what's up?
What's up, brother?
We have our king. Samurai, dude, good to see you, man.
A peak.
What is up? What is up, Samurai?
Yo.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Yes, so as for my opinion of the giant Behemoth, my opinion is very much this is a film that started off being a completely separate film, a different film about a completely different entity, this giant blob. And then because of the production studio, it ended up getting turned into a giant monster movie. So when you guys say, there's a lot of build up in the plot, it kind of has pacing issues. It's more about an investigation and a mystery right at the beginning. And then it turns into a giant kaiju movie. And I don't know how the original story was meant to go. If it was going to be about a giant blob that grows and grows to like giant proportions and then it causes chaos. But we'll never know. All we know is that this is the film that we got. And I think, for the film that we got, despite its pacing issues and its, changes of the story, I do think it's an enjoyable movie. I do think it's a movie that it's not on the level of the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, but it's still enjoyable. So I'd probably give this a 6 out of 10.
Excellent.
Nice.
So leading away from this, I just want to talk about Schools of Midnight. I want to talk about, since we've got a lot of Kaiju fans, here watching today, I want to talk about something that's coming up in the month of February. So the month of February, I am calling on the entertainment headquarters in a part of the Kaiju Connections segment, the month of King Kong. So we have a lot of great stuff coming. We have all these films we will be reviewing. King Kong 1933, Godzilla vs. King Kong 1962, King Kong Escapes 1967, and then an extra special movie, The Green Slime. And the reason I'm reviewing that is, guys, if you can see in the middle there, we have the lovely Linda Miller. Now, yes, the lovely Linda Miller, who was the female lead and star of King Kong Escapes, is going to be on the channel and being interviewed by yours truly, me, Kevin Lambert, on Kaiju Connections. So
Kev.
a lot of great stuff coming on the channel. A lot of great, all of these guys will be a part of them shows. Mr. DJ Anubis, is there anything coming up on the Metal Tavern Radio?
The only thing I've got really in the works right now is next Tuesday, and I'm glad Samurai's in the chat because he and I are going to join forces on my Kaiju Spotlight to talk about Biollante, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. I just got done talking with Lady Fat Blood about Mothra not too long ago, so looking forward to chatting with Samurai about one of the most known Kaijus out there. But then tomorrow, as some people may or may not know, I'll be teaming up with Mr. Lambert again for the Retro Movie Show as we go back and revisit the 13th Warrior. So
yeah,
a lot of fun.
Yeah. Mr. Jedi Granville, anything coming to your channel?
No, I got nothing special on my channel. I hope to have that change in the next coming months. But as far as attending, I will be attending these great lineup that you got coming up next month, and be definitely having some input with that coming up. Now, as far as my channel,
yes,
yeah, I don't have anything special, but as I said again, hopefully that'll be changing in the coming months.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Jake, you need to get it finished.
Damn it, Jake.
It's a fun one.
Finish it, dude.
Yeah,
What was
Mr. Flash
that?
Pondu Pond, what is coming up on your channel?
In addition to new content I have cooking up for next week, I can't tell you what's a surprise. One thing I do have is Sunday night, I have my normal general Q&A live chat, all topics welcome. Again, it's always
Jesus Christ.
Sci-fi, classic sci-fi, TV, and movies, a specialty. But all things nostalgia. That's our battle cry. All things nostalgia. And that's going to be 7:30 thrash time, Eastern Standard. I know, Kevin, you often drop by. I know it's really late for you. But I'm hoping you guys could all come by the 7:30 and, like I say, bring your own topic because I'll talk about all of them.
Someday I just got to jump in with you
Sangala.
and join you for that chat because that seems like so much fun.
Yeah.
It is. It looks amazing. Anthony?
Before I do it, in my defense of Anubis, every time I watch the 13th Warrior, something happens, the power goes out, or I have to go somewhere, so I never finished it due to circumstances beyond my control. But as for what I got coming up, I'm back into my Return of Godzilla-thon, where I'm re-reviewing all the Godzilla movies. I did it very early in my channel the first time when I just had my phone, no computer, so no editing. Now that I have the computer and can edit it, I'm doing the edited reviews. So next up, I watched yesterday, I just have to record the review, is Destroy All Monsters. Then I got to do All Monsters Attack.
I'll skip that one. Mr. Dan Miller.
On my channel, I've recently done a time lapse of an illustration I did for my scrapbook, which is just right here. So that's now up on my channel. If you want to check it out, see how this got transferred onto an even bigger piece. And another random thing, I'm now on TikTok. My username is Dan Filming, literally the same as my channel and my Insta. In terms of what's coming to my channel, nothing new as of yet, but I am working on some audio narrations based on some of my creative writing. So I'm gonna see where it goes from there.
Marvelous, and you do all very, very good with the creative writing. And we
Yep.
need to hear more of your radio stories
Yep.
because you're very good at it. Sci-fi, anything coming up on your channel?
Well, like me and Nubis, Gojira, and Walter we had a live stream done on Wednesday for Castlevania Nocturne, and I mentioned that I'm still going through a lot of my physical issues, and the video gaming content's usually the easiest for me to do, so that's probably what I'll stick to. But I'm gonna try every month for the next 2025 to do a live stream at least once a month on the movies that we all talk about. Like, so I'll just mention that I got some in the works. Next, of course, is Conan the Barbarian. That Anubis is on board, Jedi Grant is on board. I'll try to accommodate. We have all the month of February. I'll probably do it towards late February. So I'll see who I can accommodate. Like Kevin, you were supposed to be on it, so I'll try to get there. Tony,
Might have to move it to my channel to accommodate everybody.
And Tony, I gotta get you on my channel too, man. I gotta get you on my channel for something coming up. Yeah, like that. Yeah, and then but as far as other content, I'll just mention a few. I also have Conan the Barbarian, but then I'm also we gotta finish up Event Horizon, and then we have to we're gonna get to Godzilla versus Gigan eventually, and then the Warriors. Gonna do the Warriors for probably for the Consensus crew.
I think
I want to bring back
on that one.
Yeah.
You dig it.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll get with people, and I'll get with people when I can. Because the thing is, I'm on a really tight budget, so I use the free version of StreamYard, so I can only have 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to try to get everyone everyone here at least on one live stream, because live streaming is the only thing I'm doing. But to mention other reasons, if Samurai's on here still watching, now that he's there, I'm gonna get with you, Samurai, and because I want to do, I don't know what month, I'll get in touch with you, but I want to do First Blood with you, man. I want to do Rambo First Blood, and try to see who else I can get on there, because like I said, I don't want people to feel like, oh, you know what? Oh, how come Sci-Fi can't have me on this one and that one? Because I only use the free version of StreamYard, and you can only have 6 people. So I try to get everybody in one different movie. So
yeah,
if he sold like about 2 or 3 figurines, that'd pay off an entire year.
Oh hell no, this shit. No, I mean not the way freaking all the price. not the way you and Kevin have been bitching about. Oh man, they're raising the prices too high and all this shit. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
but
oh hell
we
no,
got
dude.
like a discount for 6 months. That's what we've been on recently.
I mean, like,
Well,
well, that's what I'm saying. But I mean that's why I stick to just once a month. But then I also might have the what do you call it? The bear. We're probably gonna have the bear that I'll do with probably Walter and Kevin and a few. It's the one from I think it's 1979, and then there's a few other ones that I'll get with everybody. But that so far it's gonna be just once a month that I do it because I have more MRIs, more shots for injections and all that stuff, man. And like this whatever shit I'm going through, man, fibromyalgia or whatever, it's kicking my ass. But yeah, man, that's so far. That's just what I got. But I will get with everybody. Tony, Thrash Pondo, Anthony. You know, I'll get you guys. I will get you guys on the Sci-Fi Society podcast soon, and I'll tell you which films that we'll do. And I try to do the films that
cool.
we all watch and stuff like that.
Sounds great.
Since he mentioned that, next month I'm also starting to do gonna do something like this. I'm gonna try to do one live a month talking about a movie.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Mr. Tony the Dead, what's coming up on your channel?
Nothing. Good night. Well, Nubis and I just recorded our, what is it, 25th and 26th or 26th and 27th?
25th and 26th, I think.
Yeah, we just recorded our of the Ghouls of Midnight. So his is probably up already.
And Getaway. No, I haven't put mine up because you got to put yours up first. So.
Mine, I'm going to edit after this, and it's probably going to go up at midnight.
Okay.
Because it's in the name. I might as well do that. But I have a video I got to edit. Well, it's edited. I have to make a thumbnail for my Vinegar Syndrome January unboxing. I got some things in that I'm going to just show that I, pickups. But the next pick that I have for Ghouls of Midnight on my channel,
house, I got 17 of them.
Rumpelstiltskin. And I just got this in the mail today. But
we're gonna follow that up with Behind Content.
I do have that, by the way, and I have not seen it. I have not seen it. But
it's something else about the Ghouls of Midnight. So Tony and I started this year that any film that neither he or I have seen before is going into a big pot of lists, and then we're going to decide at the end of the year, like, what's the top 5 of those films that we saw.
Yep.
Oh, gentlemen, I just looked at the time. I'm wicked sorry. I hate to chat and run, but I got a motor. But it has been an absolute pleasure working with all of you guys tonight, and I want to thank you guys very, very, very,
thank you for popping in. I really appreciate it.
Kevin, I really appreciate the chance here. It was a lot of fun. It was great to see you guys. Nice meeting you guys all. Like I said, I got a motor, but I'll see you all very, 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 very soon.
See you, Thrash. Have a good one, brother.
Peace out, Thrash. Peace out, Thrash.
Peace out.
Well, we're just about to wrap up anyway. But for everybody that's watched today's episode of Kaiju Connections, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the comments in the chat. This makes it all worthwhile when people are talking and chatting while we're discussing these things. And of course, having these amazing individuals in front of me makes this all worthwhile. I'm gonna put all the links to their channels, including Thrash. If you aren't subscribed to Thrash, in the description box below. But this, as always, has been a fantastic conversation. These guys are my friends, not just fellow content creators. I love them all, and they make this, like I say, all worthwhile. Like I said, next month, in the month of February, well, starting tomorrow is the 1st of February. We, of course, have on Kaiju Connections all of this great stuff coming to you this month. And, of course, we'll also have a retro classic movie show. My pick after the 13th Warrior will be Starship Troopers. So if anyone wants to join with that one, you are more than welcome to join us.
You'll be good one, is a dead one.
Got a lot of them there. I want to be on that.
Yes.
Would you like to know more?
Yes.
Yes.
You want to live forever?
Every
Thank you
school
for
gets
joining
told
us.
Arachnids are dangerous.
Yes. Also
No
on
input.
the entertainment headquarters, we also do the Into the Darkness horror segment, but this time it's going to be dedicated to Mr. Tony of the Dead because it is his birthday, and so it's his choice, and we're going to be doing all the Dead movies. Return of the Living Dead, I believe. Well, actually, which movies did you pick, Tony?
The
Night of the Living Dead 90, I think.
Yeah, and then
Dawn
of the Dead 78,
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead, and then Diary of the Dead, and no.
Oh, wait, are you doing
no? I'm sorry.
Land of the Dead?
Land of the Dead, and then Diary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
So
I have
as you
the
can
links.
see,
I could send it. I have
Yeah.
to send it to Anthony.
I'll
too.
probably need them links, so I'll take the links off you. But
Yeah, whoever
as
needs them,
always, this
Diary's easy to
Yes.
find. I just have to order Land at the first of the month.
you don't have to buy it. There's a link out there.
Yeah, right. They'll spring it.
let's hope the YouTube people are not listening in. But anyway, as always,
It's on their channel. No, I don't know.
well, anyway, this has been a blast. Like I say, thank you everyone for watching. Keep loving your movies. Keep on loving all things entertainment. Keep on loving all things big monster and kaiju cinema. We'll catch us all at the next one. And like Mr. Jedi Granville always says, keep the kaiju love
love
alive.
Yes.